At my cousin Haley's engagement party, she raised her glass, looked straight at me, and said, "God, I hope I never end up like him single, raising a kid alone." The entire room burst into laughter. Not polite giggles, real, loud, belly laughter, like she'd just told the joke of the night. My Uncle Frank slapped the table and added, "No man wants second-hand goods. That's just facts." Even my mother let out a small laugh as she reached for her wine. I sat frozen. My face burned. My heart pounded. I tried to pretend it didn't matter. But then something happened that I didn't see coming. Chase, Haley's fiancé, stood up. He wasn't smiling. At first, he didn't say a word. He just slowly walked across the room toward me. The laughter died. Chairs stilled. Forks hung in the air. Every head turned. Then Chase said, "I think there's something everyone here needs to know." The room froze. And inside me, something stopped. I'd gotten the invitation about a month earlier, thick cream cardstock with gold lettering, a little too formal. "Please join us in celebrating the engagement of Haley Thomas and Chase Bennett." I stared at it for 5 minutes, then set it down next to a pile of unpaid bills. Haley and I hadn't spoken in over 6 months. Not since the baby shower, the one where she joked I was collecting diapers and bad decisions. I'd laughed it off to keep the peace, but that joke stuck like glass in my chest. I wasn't sure I could face a room full of people who still saw me as some kind of cautionary tale, a man who failed at life. Even though I'm 32, raising my son on my own, working 2 jobs, scraping by in a tiny apartment held together with freelance gigs and late-night prayers. I almost didn't go. But my mom called 3 times the night before. "It's Haley's family, Daniel. Just smile, eat a little, show your face." It's one evening. She didn't say the rest out loud, but I knew what she meant. Don't make a scene. Don't make anyone uncomfortable. Blend in. So I put on the only suit I owned, a bit too snug, and a tie with a silver heart on it. Eli picked it. Said it looked like his. The moment we arrived, I could feel the tension, tucked behind the flower arrangements and fake hugs. The restaurant was upscale, private room, dim lights, soft music. Wines lined the walls like trophies. Everyone wore their elegance like armor. Haley floated by in a silk dress, drenched in perfume. She kissed me on the cheek like I was a distant uncle. "So glad you made it," she said with a smile that never reached her eyes. "You bring a +1? Or just Eli?" "Just Eli," I replied. "Ah." She nodded and turned away before I could say anything else. Eli got seated at the kids' table with chicken tenders and a coloring book. I was placed at the far end of the long white draped table, between my mom and Aunt Valerie, who immediately started showing me photos of her dog in Halloween costumes. I scanned the room. Uncle Frank, Haley's dad, was already on his 3rd drink. My mom looked like she was trying to fade into the wall. Across the room, Chase stood near the bar, chatting with his younger brother, checking his phone every few minutes. His smile was tight. It was Haley's night. She soaked up the spotlight like a pro, always knew how to work a room. When the appetizers arrived, my mom leaned in and whispered, "Just keep your head down. You look nice. Nice. Not strong. Not handsome. Just nice." That was all she could manage. I nodded, tried to enjoy the food, tried to breathe through the awkward silences and the sideways glances. To them, my son was a blemish on the family crest. I made small talk when needed, smiled when expected, passed the bread. But inside, I was bracing. I wasn't expecting kindness, not really. But I wasn't prepared for what came next either. After the main course, as the plates were cleared and glasses were topped off, Haley stood. She raised her champagne glass and tapped it with a fork, waiting for quiet. I expected the usual toast, thank yous, a few awkward jokes about wedding planning. I wasn't prepared for what she actually said, and definitely not for how hard they'd all laugh, or for what Chase would do next. Haley stood like she was on stage. That same bright smile. Eyes locked on every guest. She basked in it. Chase sat beside her, silent, hands folded. He glanced at me once, briefly, then looked back at the table. He looked tired. "Thank you all for coming," Haley began. "I still can't believe I get to marry someone like Chase. He's patient, smart, and best of all, he puts up with me." Laughter. Her voice was smooth, practiced, polished. "Honestly, I just hope our marriage lasts. I'd hate to end up like some people." She tilted her head just enough in my direction, just enough for everyone to follow her line of sight. "You know, 30, single, with a kid?" She laughed, and the room erupted. Not nervous chuckles. Real, loud, stomach-hurting laughter. My aunt wiped tears from her eyes. Uncle Frank slapped the table again, half choking as he said, "You don't trade in a dented car and expect full price. That's just how it is." My stomach dropped. I looked at my mom. She gave me a weak smile and reached for her wine glass. I wanted to disappear, stared down at my empty plate, hands clenched in my lap, napkin twisted tight. I could feel the glances. Not direct stares, just long enough to confirm the joke was about me. I was the joke. And Eli? Just a few feet away, drawing a spaceship on a napkin. He didn't hear it. He didn't know the room was laughing at his dad, like I was some discount rack sweater no one wanted anymore. Aunt Valerie leaned in and whispered, "Oh honey, don't take it to heart. Haley just loves the spotlight." But that wasn't about attention. That was poison in a champagne flute, served cold and with a smile. I made small talk when expected, smiled when I was supposed to, passed the bread. But inside I was shrinking. I wasn't expecting kindness, but I wasn't ready for what came next either. When the main course was cleared and the glasses were refilled, Haley stood up again. She lifted her champagne, tapped the side of the glass with her fork, and waited for the room to quiet. I assumed she'd give a standard toast, some gratitude, a few jokes about wedding planning. I wasn't prepared for what actually came out of her mouth. And I definitely wasn't prepared for how hard everyone would laugh. Or what Chase would do next. Haley stood there like it was opening night on Broadway. Her smile beamed. Every eye in the room was on her. She soaked it in like attention was her oxygen. Chase sat next to her, silent, arms folded. At one point, he glanced over at me. Just a flicker. Then his eyes dropped back to the table. He looked drained. "Thank you all for coming," she said. "Honestly, I can't believe I'm marrying someone like Chase. He's smart, he's patient, and, most importantly, he puts up with me." The room chuckled on cue. Her delivery was smooth, polished, like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. "Really though," she continued, "I just hope our marriage lasts. I'd hate to end up like some people." She turned her head just slightly, just enough to make it clear who she was talking about. "Single, 30, with a kid," and she laughed, and the room roared. Not a few awkward chuckles. Real, sharp, gut-punching laughter. My aunt dabbed at tears from her eyes. Uncle Frank slammed the table again, practically wheezing as he blurted out, "Nobody wants used goods. A car with dents ain't selling at full price." And that hit me in the chest like a steel bat. I looked at my mother. She gave a tight smile and reached for her wine like she couldn't get to it fast enough. I wanted to disappear. I stared down at my empty plate, my hands in my lap, twisting the napkin tight. I could feel it, those short, sideways glances. Not direct, just long enough to silently say, "He's the one she meant." I was the punchline. And just a few feet away, Eli was happily drawing a spaceship on a napkin. He didn't hear. Didn't know the room was laughing at his father. Like I was some thrift store reject nobody wanted to touch. Aunt Valerie leaned in, whispering, "Don't take it personally, sweetheart. Haley just loves the spotlight." But that wasn't a craving for attention. That was venom, poured into a crystal glass and served with a smile. I straightened up in my chair, refused to let them see how much it hurt. My cheeks were on fire. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the background music. I looked back at Chase. He was staring at his hands, jaw clenched. He wasn't laughing. Haley kept going. A few more jokes about how she made Chase throw away his game console, how he wouldn't survive married life without her. The laughter was fading. Some people were starting to shift uncomfortably in their seats. My mom fiddled with her bracelet, but no one said a word. And that was the worst part. No one said anything. They laughed because it was easier. Because it's always easier to laugh at the one who doesn't fit the mold. The guy who showed up alone. The single dad. The one who didn't play by the family's rules. I thought about standing up. About grabbing Eli. About saying something sharp, loud enough for everyone to hear. I almost said it. At least I'm raising a human being while you're busy posting bikini selfies for Instagram likes. But I swallowed it. Sat there, letting the heat crawl up my neck and into my ears. Told myself, it's just one night. You'll go home. Tuck Eli into bed. Forget this ever happened. And then Chase stood up. Didn't say a word. Just pushed back his chair and walked slowly around the table. The room fell silent. Haley blinked. Frank reached for his glass again. My mom stared down into her plate. Chase walked straight to me. No hesitation. No performance. He looked at me, then turned to look at everyone else in the room. The family he was about to marry into. And said, I think there's something they need to know. No one moved. No one laughed. The air in the room shifted, like the center of gravity had changed. His words hit like a rock dropped into a still lake. I think they need to know this. No clinking silverware. No murmurs. Even the breathing in the room seemed to pause. Haley blinked like she'd just heard a line that wasn't in the script. Like this was some surprise twist no one told her about. Uncle Frank slowly lowered his glass. My mom turned slightly, and for the first time that night, she actually looked at me, not past me. I couldn't breathe. Chase was standing right next to me. Not across the table. Not behind me. Right there close enough that I could see the tension in his jaw. I braced myself. Maybe he was about to join in. Say something I'd never recover from. Maybe he was with them. But when he looked at me, there was no pity. No judgment. Just something solid. Then he turned to face the room. I can't stay silent anymore, Chase said. His voice wasn't loud. But it was calm and clear, and nobody dared interrupt. He turned to Haley. That wasn't a joke. That was cruel. She opened her mouth to respond, but he held up a hand. Let me finish. He looked around the room, slowly, locking eyes with people. You all laugh at Daniel like he's some kind of failure. Like he's the blueprint for what not to become. But what you don't know, or don't want to know, is that he's the strongest person in this room. My heart slammed in my chest. I didn't understand what was happening. Everyone was looking at me, but Chase never took his eyes off them. 2 years ago, he continued, I was in a dark place. I'd lost my job. I was completely unmotivated. Drinking too much. Haley told me to get it together. Her dad told me to man up. But Daniel. He paused. Everyone was still. Daniel called me every week. Helped rewrite my resume. Connected me to someone he freelanced with. He even watched my niece while my sister was in the hospital so I could make it to a job interview. He didn't ask for anything. Didn't look for credit. He just showed up, the way none of you did. Then Chase turned back to me. We barely knew each other. But you saw I was drowning and you pulled me out. I felt my breath catch. But not from shame this time, from disbelief. Then Chase turned to the room again. So when you mock him, when you reduce him to some stereotype, when you call him damaged goods or say he's used up, you're not talking about some abstract idea. You're talking about the man who helped me get back on my feet. You're tearing down someone I look up to. Haley stood up. What are you doing? I'm being honest, Chase said, steady. This entire night has been full of fake smiles and shallow compliments. But I'm not going to sit here while you tear down a good man just to make yourself look better. Haley's face went cold. So what? You're trying to humiliate me now? No, Chase said. You did that. A few people lowered their eyes. Frank's face turned bright red. My mom looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Chase looked at me again. You didn't deserve that. Any of it. I wanted to say something. Thank you. Or even just, I'm okay. But I couldn't speak. All I could do was nod. That was all I had. In a room full of people who called themselves family. Chase was the only one who stood up for me. Not later. Not in a private text. But right there, in the moment it mattered. The air changed. The story shifted. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't shrinking in my seat. No one moved. Everything hung in that heavy silence after truth is spoken. I could hear the humming of the overhead lights. Somewhere, a server dropped a tray. No one laughed. No one dared. Haley was still standing, staring at Chase like he had slapped her in front of everyone. Her cheeks flushed, not with embarrassment, but rage. She scanned the table, looking for someone to jump in, to defend her. But no one did. Finally, Frank mumbled. He's just emotional. Don't take it seriously. Chase didn't even flinch. You want to talk about emotions, he said. Fine. Let's talk about what it actually takes to raise a kid on your own. Working 2 jobs. Showing up even when it's inconvenient. That's not emotion. That's strength. Haley crossed her arms. What? Do you have feelings for him now? Chase looked at her like he didn't recognize the person in front of him. I'm saying I admire him. I respect him. And maybe, if you spent less time performing perfection and more time actually listening, you'd understand why that matters. Those words hit harder than anything that had come before. Because it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about truth. Someone had finally said it out loud. In a room where everyone had built their self-image on status and polite cruelty. My mom opened her mouth. Then closed it again. She looked at me, really looked, and there it was, something like guilt. Maybe, for the first time, she realized her silence had betrayed me too. She'd spent years teaching me to be quiet. To forgive. To smile through pain. And maybe now, for the first time, she saw how much that cost me. I wasn't waiting for an apology. Not from Haley. Not from Frank. Not even from my mom. Chase turned back to me. He didn't touch me. Didn't reach for a handshake. He just stood beside me steady, calm, like a wall that didn't press in, but held firm. You deserve better, he said. I met his eyes. Didn't look away. Then slowly, I stood up. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I looked down the table. At the people who had spent years reducing my entire life to one chapter. One mistake. I saw Haley silent, seething. My mother stunned into silence. Frank hiding in his phone screen. And I didn't feel small. I looked over at Eli, still drawing rockets. He glanced up and smiled at me. I smiled back. We're gonna head out, I said. I didn't say it to anyone in particular. I wasn't asking permission. I walked to my son, helped him gather his crayons, picked up his drawing, a rocket flying toward a crooked sun. He handed it to me like it was treasure. Did you have fun, buddy? Yeah. Ready to go home? Yep. Let's go. Chase stepped aside to let us pass. Gave me a small nod, not a goodbye, but a message. You were seen. You mattered. You were right to stand tall. At the door, I turned back once. No one was laughing anymore. Haley sat stiff, face hard. Frank scrolled through his phone, pretending none of it happened. My mother stared into her wine glass, her fingers trembling slightly. I didn't need an apology. Didn't need their approval. I had spoken the truth just by being myself. And Chase had backed that truth right there, in front of all of them. That was enough. I opened the door. Eli slipped his hand into mine. We walked out together steady, unshaken. The night air felt different. Not colder. Just cleaner. Lighter. Like the weight I'd been carrying for years had finally lifted. Not because someone took it from me, but because I stopped pretending it was mine to carry. Eli ran ahead down the sidewalk, waving his drawing like a little flag, humming to himself. I watched him and thought about what it had taken to raise a boy who still radiated light, still happy, still whole, even when his father had walked through fire just to keep that light alive. I used to see my life through the lens of what I'd lost. A relationship that didn't last. A family that never understood. The stability I gave up to raise my son alone. I let other people define my worth. Carried their disappointment like it was mine to fix. But walking out of that room, with my son's hand in mine, I felt something else. Not rage. Not pride. Clarity. They weren't laughing anymore. Because someone had finally told the truth. Not the version they created, but the one I had actually lived. I didn't need validation. Didn't need the family's blessing to make my life feel real. What I needed was honesty. Someone to say out loud, "You are more than the worst version of their assumptions." Chase didn't rescue me. He didn't fix anything. What he did was more powerful. He saw me. And by doing that, he made everyone else see me too. That moment wasn't just about defending me. It was about breaking a cycle. The one that tells men their value is tied to how they're packaged. That single fathers are damaged. That strength without a wedding ring is weakness. Later that night, my mom texted me one sentence. "I'm sorry. It didn't undo the past. But it was something. A crack in the wall. Maybe even the start of one." Haley didn't message me. I didn't expect her to. I didn't need her apology. I no longer measured my worth by her opinion. What I truly needed, I gave myself. Permission to walk away from people who made me feel small. And to leave with my dignity intact. We got home. I tucked Eli into bed. He was a little tired, but still smiling. He didn't ask about dinner. Didn't ask why I seemed different. He just looked at me and said, "I love you." Then fell asleep. I stayed in the living room, still in my suit, letting the quiet settle. Thinking about all the times I had tried to disappear. Shrunk myself to avoid being too much. To not upset anyone. To avoid being the one they whispered about. I'm done shrinking. I've been through too much on my own to keep apologizing for the fact that I survived. I raised a kind, curious, loving boy. I built a life from grit, from dignity, from a heart that kept beating even when it felt like no one else noticed. So if anyone ever tries to laugh at that again, I won't stay silent. I won't yell. I won't cry. I'll do what I did that night. I'll stand. I'll meet their eyes. And I'll walk out with the one thing that proves I've already won. Not because I'm perfect, but because I never gave up. If you've ever been the one they whispered about. The one they turned into a punchline in a story that was never fair to begin with. Know this. You are not broken. And you never were. You are already enough. Already worthy. already seen. We've spent too many years trying to shrink ourselves to fit into rooms we were never meant to be in. But healing begins the moment you stop apologizing for your truth. If this story stirred something in you, hold on to that. Remember your strength, your worth. The moment you finally stood up for yourself, you have the right to exist. You have the right to leave. You have the right to start over. And if no one's told you today, you're doing better than you think. I wasn't chasing anyone's approval. All I ever wanted was truth. For anyone to see me, not through the lens of their assumptions, but for who I actually am. Chase didn't fix me. He didn't rescue me. What he did was far more powerful. He acknowledged my worth. And in doing that, forced the room to see it too. That moment wasn't just protection. It was a breakthrough. A challenge to the lie that a single father is a failure. That a man without a ring is somehow less of a man. Later that night, my mom sent me a message. Just one sentence. I'm sorry. It didn't change the past, but it cracked the wall. Maybe even started something. Haley never messaged me, and that's fine. Her opinion doesn't define me anymore. What I truly needed, I gave to myself. The permission to walk away from places that belittled me, and leave them without losing myself. At home, I tucked Eli into bed. He was happy. He didn't ask about what happened. Didn't ask why I looked different. He just looked up at me and said, I love you. And then he went to sleep. I stayed in the room, still in my suit, letting the quiet settle in. And I realized something. I'm done hiding. I've been through enough to know this much. Standing your ground is dignity. I raised a good kid, built a life that stands on resilience and self-respect. And if anyone ever tries to laugh at that again, I'll rise. I'll look them in the eye, and I'll walk out. Because I've already won. Not perfect, but unbroken. And if anyone has ever made you feel small, know this. You are not ruined. You are not too late. You are already enough. Healing begins with truth. And if this story reminded you of yours, hold on to it. Trust in your strength. You have the right to be here. You have the right to begin again. And even if no one's told you yet today, you're doing better than you think.